Okay, so the other day I was, editing a plugin. I was extending stuff, looking to a plugin, and then I saw, hey, it is way too big. I mean, hundreds of lines of code in a controller, and I completely got crazy because there's no need for doing such a thing. It makes everybody's life harder, right? But then, and by the way, I remember very well. Let me show you a tweet. It's not Twitter anymore, but anyway, so from Thomas, he says, this approach is the way to go in all PHP frameworks. Single route, single controller. Prevents from turning controllers into 50 actions God class in the next 5 years. Right? Basically, I think Laravel, I'm not a big fan of Laravel because it do a lot of magic. I'm a much more Symfony guy, even though Symfony does some magic. But the point is, basically one controller, one route, one controller, right? And by the way, that's something that Shopware doesn't do. For example, this, and by the way, Shopware, it's still being a decent code because it has like few lines of code by a single route, right? But the controller I saw the other day was, I cannot share because it's a private, code. Is a closed source plugin, but basically it has like hundreds of lines of code, so which is insane. But Shopware is still being like a decent job. But even though it's doing a decent job, I'll go much more, 1,000 times more in one route, one file. I know in Shopware 6 is something basically would never happen because it would break so much. Just in Shopware 7, if it is the case, right? But basically, one thing that I see up front is that because they are doing like 1,000 line code controller plus, one thing that happened is the following, right? The first thing you see a lot of imports. You see a lot of imports, and the imports keep growing, I tell you, right? The more they create routes, they create methods, and they import. For example, if I'm playing around with this, for example, API action version entity ID, there are a lot of imports. Maybe 90% of all these imports has nothing to do with that specific method, right? And which is not cool because I'm adding complexity and adding things that, it breaks single responsibility principle, right? You shouldn't be doing one thing, even though it's a questionable thing, but it's a good thing to keep in mind, right? So basically, it's, first thing, multiple. And another thing is that I have to scroll. Okay, I wanted to change one thing. I need to scroll. I need to find. Big files are always a trouble. Big files is just always a heck to maintain, right? Okay, another thing that I see is that, okay, you see a lot of public methods. Let's see how many there are. Public function. Yeah, just 13. Yeah, just 13. Oh, just 13. Yeah. Oh, let us see protected if there are any. Protected. No, there are none. But private. Yeah, there are 13. No, 14. Yes, 14. The funny thing is, for example, the very same principle. For example, if you go, for example, this one. Let us take this one. Get definition for path segment. Right. Basically, it's just used in 3 times. Right. And 1, 2, actually in 2 times, here and there, right? But all the methods, all the public methods, they kind of are in the same class for this private method. I didn't do the counting, but I would say like 80, 90, 95% of all the public methods are not using all those kind of private methods, right? Just few classes, just few public methods. So I think it should. And by the way, what about testing, right? What about if we extract from this God class and extract the things into, I mean, extract this private methods into classes so we can unit test, integration test them, right? That would be very cool. And again, going back, I mean, it should be a single route for a single controller. That would be much more cleaner code, more understandable. We don't need that amount of imports, easier to edit. There's no too many amount of lines. So I think that's way to go. But anyway, Shopware is not perfect. But you know what? It happens not in many controllers. It's just controllers here and there, right? But yeah, I'm a big fan of just a single route, single controller. It's much more maintainable, especially down the years, right? So yeah. But yeah, Shopware is not perfect. I mean, Shopware does a wonderful job. I just love working with Shopware. It does an incredible job about in many parts. So I'm just, I think it is important to be a developer that questions things, but it's very important to keep in mind. So, all right, love Shopware Core. Developers, they do a absurd amount great stuff. They ship wonderful and great stuff, and I'm very happy about that. So all right, that's it for today. Thank you so much. Make sure you subscribe to the channel, give me your like, and thank you so much. Have a good one. Bye.